we start our interview today, I want to tell you about an event that is coming up at the beginning of February. It is the very popular Last Caller Standing event. This is a time when local priests go head to head in a hilarious, and I promise you it is hilarious, live streamed competition, very similar to Survivor. So if you haven't seen it, don't miss your chance to see your favorite priests compete against each other to decide who will be the last caller standing. This happens on Sunday, February 4th at 4 p.m. online at sfcatholic.org/LCS, which stands for Last Caller Standing. You can also, if you for some reason can't find that, you can find us on YouTube at SF Diocese, and you can find it there as well. If you want updates on that, you can text Last Caller to 84576. All right. So in the studio with me today, I have Mark Conzemius, who is now officially President Emeritus of the Catholic Community Foundation for Eastern South Dakota. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Like just retired.
Just retired.
Like last week.
Yeah. Yep.
And we're recording this on his very last day.
So technically I'm working.
Technically he's working. When you hear this, he's not working anymore. Or at least I hope not. Or at least not very much. So we wanted to have Mark come in because he has been here for just about 30 years, right?
Yes.
It would be 30 years.
I'm in my 30th year, if you will.
Yes.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So this is a big deal. You've been here a long time, and it's got to be a little weird.
Yeah, along the way, as human nature is for at least some of us, and you have to know I traveled extensively for 13 years with my previous employer. So I had traveled to 35 countries in all 50 states prior to coming here. And at the age of 35 when I came here, there's no way I thought 30 years later I'd be retiring from this very same position. Right. Because sometimes we have the tendency to think, well, what's wrong with him? He's been there for 30 years. Why didn't he find something else?
Especially now that hardly happens anymore.
It hardly happens. And to that point, Renee, my son, who's now 36, we were talking on the phone, and for various reasons, including COVID, he's been in 5 or 6 different jobs over the past 4 years. He said, Dad, you realize how fortunate you are to be retiring from the same organization you've been in for 30 years. And of course, he wasn't really asking me. He was telling me.
Right.
Which was a great reminder of just how blessed I really am.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people in the diocese know who you are, but in case someone doesn't know anything about you, let's start with 2 things. Tell us about where you grew up, your family, and then how did you come to be at the foundation?
Yeah, so I'm actually a Midwesterner. I grew up in north central Minnesota.
Okay.
And I grew up Catholic, so my faith has always been important to me. And it was through that experience that I actually ended up here. I spent 3 of my 4 years on the campus of North Dakota State University at the Newman Center there. Newman Center. Keep that in mind, right? That's the thing we have in common. My daughter did go to SDSU, so Jackrabbit as well. But then I ended up traveling with an international organization called Up With People.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And that's where I met my wife, Jeannie, who's from New Hampshire. And through the course of that time there, I was involved in what we call mission advancement. So it's a nonprofit. How do we advance the mission?
Okay.
You engage the public in your mission to support it.
A bit like fundraising.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And then this was in 1994. Archbishop Carlson had just been assigned here to the Diocese of Sioux Falls, and he recognized early on that, actually the diocese at the time had been operating in the red for a few years, and it wasn't really a big deal, but to him it was a big deal, and that is a significant thing. That's not sustainable. Yeah. And he realized that really the way to advance the mission of the church here in East River is to really grow a foundation, a Catholic foundation.
Right.
So
foundation's very common at the time.
Not real common.
Okay.
No. And because it's really a donor-directed approach, which is so different in the church, at least our experience of church. And Archbishop didn't know anybody. He was brand new to South Dakota. So he goes back to the Archdiocese of St. Paul, Minneapolis. They have an office of planning. And he goes, hey, do you know anybody who might consider being a development director in South Dakota? And this gentleman said, well, I don't know this particular person, but here's a resume we got from the director of the Newman Center at NDSU,
Oh, okay.
who had always been saying, Mark, when you're ready to settle down, come back to the Midwest. And that's Father Dave McCulley, God rest his soul. And so Archbishop did not know me. I didn't know him. It's a Saturday afternoon, Memorial Day weekend. I'm in Denver. I'm living really the good life. As I mentioned, I'm 35. I've been to 35 countries.
You're living in Denver, in the
And
mountains.
in the mountains, we have 2 children. It's a very stimulating, interesting experience I'm having professionally and personally. And Jeannie says, hey, Mark, there's a guy on the phone who is calling for you. He said he's a bishop. And I don't know any bishops.
You're like, what?
I'm Catholic. I go to Mass on Sunday, but I don't know any bishops. So all the way to the phone, I'm thinking, which one of my buddies is playing a joke on me? I'm gonna figure this out and call him out on it. And Bishop Carlson is a great salesperson, if anybody knows him. And he convinced me early on that he indeed was the new bishop, as he said, in South Dakota. And he said, would you be interested to come and work for me in the church? And, I just, the Holy Spirit. I don't know why I said yes, but sure. I don't know you. You don't know me. There's nothing
Never
to lose.
lived in Sioux Falls.
Yeah. And it took 3 months for his calendar and my calendar to mesh. Sure. Actually flew from New Hampshire on vacation to come out here. And I remember it was just a phenomenal day. I kind of kid. It's the one and only day I've lived here where it was 72 degrees, no humidity, no bugs, no wind.
That's the only way you're going to get someone here, right?
I could live here.
Day.
I could live here. But all kidding aside, there were a couple people I still remember who were there. Monsignor Doyle, God rest his soul. Al Kurtenbach, Jeremiah Murphy, God rest his soul. And I was just so amazed at the vision Archbishop had for the church here in East River. And Jeannie jokes, she said she still remembers picking me up at the airport, and she said, I could just see it in your face. And her
It's like,
first,
we're going to move to South Dakota.
her worst, exactly. Said, actually, it came out more like a question like, we're not going to be moving to South Dakota. And, but she is she's fantastic. And Jeannie was open to it. And she said, let's do it. And so, just so shocked, October of 1994, we moved out here.
Yeah.
And not one single regret. But I never thought that this is where we'd end up, raising our kids and now being retired. Jeannie has no desire. It's her turn now to be close to her family. Her mom's still alive, but we're going to live here.
Oh, that's good.
We're so blessed to be here.
That's good to hear.
So that's a long story, but it's a beautiful story of God's providence.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So can you tell us, what was your faith like before you came to the foundation? And how has it changed since you've been here doing this work? Because this is, and you should maybe tell us just a little bit about what you do.
Sure.
But how has your faith changed in that time?
Well, first of all, the Catholic Foundation's mission is to help donors grow deeper in love with Christ by sharing their gifts in gratitude to God. So we really do see it as a ministry.
Right.
And so we believe everything we do should be about our faith. Like, it's not, okay, this is about money, so we're compartmentalizing it separate to our faith. It should be fully integrated. And we desire our donors to give out of gratitude and to have an experience of joy. That's our litmus test. Did we do okay with Renee today when she made that gift? If she has joy, we did.
Yeah.
As opposed to she has guilt, she has buyer's remorse, she wishes she didn't do it, or she was doing it out of obligation. We want you to do it because you recognize everything is a gift from God.
Right.
And I would say, Renee, before coming here, that already was ingrained in me, if you will. Ingrained sounds like it was. But it was a part of my life because of the witness of my parents.
Okay.
And their parents and my grandparents. I was around people who were really, truly grateful. My mom, her last days of her life, I mean, it was difficult. She'd just look up at me in her weakness and say, I am so blessed.
Wow.
And so that hasn't changed. But what has changed is how I questioned myself. So I came here, I'd never worked for the Catholic Church, as I mentioned. I'd never run a foundation, even though I'd done some fundraising. And I didn't know anybody. And Bishop didn't know me. And many times early on, it was like, what are we doing? And what am I doing? And I can't do this. You know, those thoughts creep in your mind. And so that's where I am still amazed every day. And now that I'm retired, it's like, wow, I truly was the president of a Catholic foundation. Because every day I was like, who am I to be doing this? And yet God would just show the fruits. And I think where my faith has grown is I have the privilege of working next to a church, the cathedral, in the monastery. And in the beginning, I thought this is sort of gets in the way of my workday because it's a half hour to go to mass, right? In the middle of my work. Now I see it as integrated in my work.
Yes.
Like I go there to pray, Lord, who do you want me to call?
Yeah.
And give me the words to say. And I've seen it over and over again be rewarded.
Yeah. And you've inspired other people to do that same thing in this building, I have to say.
Oh, well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because I was inspired by people who went before me. You know, that's how our faith is passed on. I didn't initiate that thought.
Right.
But I think we take everything to Jesus. None of it's too small.
Right.
And I think the more specific, the better. So I literally say, Lord, if I don't have anything on my calendar, it's like, I don't know what to do today. Show me.
Right. Yeah.
I know you got a perfect plan, and just unveil it and help me be disposed to your will today.
Yeah.
And then if I have things in my calendar, Lord, be in the middle of that. And he continues to be. I'm just so amazed. Renee, I was able to share. I brought a couple notes so I'd get it right.
Yeah.
Just the last week, I'm still taking credit because I'm,
Right.
The last week of the year, which is traditionally in the U.S. because of our tax system, a time for people to make a lot of gifts. But just in 1 week, we processed $1,826,000, 362 cents. All of that is donor-designated money where donors are passionate in their prayer. They have come to the conclusion they want to designate gifts, and they want us to do it with our Catholic values as the Catholic Community Foundation. And I'm just so humbled that people would entrust us to be good stewards of it. That's just 1 week. And
that's insane.
When you do it over, in the first few years, I was the first employee. We now have 18 employees in 5 communities. That blows me away.
Yeah,
it's like, wow, Lord. And I don't take pride in that, but I take great joy, and I'm so grateful for that. To me, it's just all witness of the Lord.
Yeah.
So over all that time, we actually track every gift, and we're over $330 million. Wow. Over these 29 years that we've processed.
Incredible.
That's above and beyond Catholic Family Sharing Appeal. Can I just add real quick? We don't talk about this a lot because when you talk about numbers, it quickly becomes transactional for one. It can be. And then people can also go, oh, the church has so much money. But, so listeners, please keep in mind, because many of you do it, or who are listening, have used the Catholic Community Foundation. You're asking us to distribute it to these ministries that you have designated.
Yes.
We do have some monies that are unrestricted, and they go into a process where we have a grant review committee every year.
Yep, I've used that myself.
Grant applications. I think some of the things in the studio.
Yes.
We get to do Catholic Views, in part because of the generosity of donors who desire to support this ministry.
Yep.
So that's just an example of it. But my faith has grown. That's where the question originated. Is that God won't be outdone in generosity. Yeah. I've seen the more generous people are, the more generous God is in a sense. I mean, I've experienced that myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm just inherently selfish. I mean,
sure.
I kind of hang on to stuff.
Yeah.
I have a hard time letting go and trusting that it's okay to give first because God will provide. But the more I give, and I've been sort of challenged to give because others around me give so much. I need to live this, be authentic. God has just blessed me so many more times over than anything I've ever given.
Yeah. So, you may have already answered these couple next questions, but
Sure.
we'll see. What was the biggest challenge you faced? I mean, I know there was a challenge in knowing that you had what it took to run the foundation, but there must be something else.
Yeah, well, I was going to say getting started was
Oh,
for sure
yeah.
the biggest challenge.
I bet.
I didn't know where to begin or what to do, but God provided. And he provided this. Bishop Carlson, I remember, said, Mark, we're going to give you an office, we're going to give you a car, you're going to have a phone. I don't even know if they had computers 30 years ago. They didn't have laptops, I know.
No.
No, we did have a computer
Yeah.
system. And but he said a consultant, and I was a little offended, even though I didn't know what I was going to do. But sometimes, consultant. Well, you hired me. Why do I need?
Right.
But this is as much art as it is science. So it's just somebody to help coach and encourage, and somebody to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
And this person has been with us once a month for a day or two, and he's been so helpful, just in coaching and encouraging and actually challenging me in my weak areas.
Sure.
His name is Rick Frisch, and I'm forever grateful to Rick. And God is so good, Renee. The board of directors has asked me now to play that role
Oh, that's awesome.
with our
Yeah.
staff now as I move into this role as president emeritus.
Perfect consultant.
1 to 2 days a week or a month, I'm sorry, where I get to poke them
Right.
in their uneasy areas and
Right.
just challenge and encourage them.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's always good to have someone from the outside that's not embroiled in the everyday of that can say, hey, did you guys ever think about this? And because sometimes you just don't. You're working away and you don't
Yeah.
see the thing that's right in front of you.
Well, in our kind of work too, or ministry, people are asking us for things like expense reports and budgets and strategic plans or whatever, but very few times are they saying, who did you call today, or have you made your phone calls today? Have you reached out to people today? 'Cause
Yeah.
there's nobody else accountable to that except you.
Right.
And so you need to have that kind of discipline, and that's the kind of role I can play.
Yeah.
And if I could just say one other thing where I was really challenged, I'd say just about every big project that we were blessed to be a part of, I entered it with, oh, we can't do that. Build a retreat center? Oh, come on. Restore the cathedral?
Come on.
Yeah, $35 million? No way.
Right.
Build a monastery, a homeless shelter. I had to convince myself
Yeah.
first, and it took a while before we could jump into it and I could invite others
Yeah.
to be a part of it. And
And
that took a lot of prayer.
Yeah. And the generosity of the people here is incredible, isn't it?
Incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you maybe are going to ask me this, but I can tell you the Bishop Dudley Hospitality House was absolutely amazing because Bishop Swain led that effort in terms of visioning it and giving us the green light. But he himself had plenty of caution
Sure.
and was risk adverse. So
Yes.
we shared that in common.
Yeah.
But it was announced in February. We didn't have the money, but said we're going to do this because really the city of Sioux Falls, frankly, said we need help. And the Catholic Church is uniquely set up because we're not congregational. We're not these independent. As a collective organization, we have the manpower
Yep.
to horsepower to go do this. So we announced it in February, and it actually not only raised the money, but we built it. 11 months later, it was open.
Wow. That's incredible.
It is absolutely remarkable. It is the story of a community, and this is non-Catholics as well as Catholics.
Yep.
Everybody
Yep.
jumped on board because Jesus said,
Yep.
right, feed the hungry and house the homeless. And it was so right in front of us in the middle of this, as if we needed additional motivation. Very sadly, a woman died from
I
exposure
remember that.
in
Yeah.
the stairwell of a parking garage right here in our city.
Yep.
And one of the mantras became "not in our city."
Yep.
And God is so good. Something to be proud of. I don't think proud as much as just really grateful. Again, just grateful to God. And sadly, that work is not done. We now get to work on a shelter for families, homeless
yep.
families.
Yep.
Kind of the next phase of the Bishop Dudley House.
Yeah. Okay, we have just a couple minutes left. So I don't know if you can answer both these questions. I think you can. So I want to know, what's your biggest blessing from your time, and what are you going to do in retirement?
Yeah.
So those two things in 2 minutes,
Oh, 2 minutes. Okay.
approximately.
I'll try to. Man, you know my weakness.
I know.
Speaking of, biggest blessing by far is being able to walk with individual donors in their journey of
Yeah.
faith.
Relationship, you always said, was so important.
It's so inspiring
Yeah.
to hear people's stories. So I often say, what we do, like making a donation, is inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
How it's made is kind of interesting, but why people make it, now that is fascinating and inspiring. And that's what I get to do. That's my biggest joy
Yeah.
and gratitude. And every donation has a story. I'd
Yeah.
love to tell you the story of Broomtree. It is so fascinating.
And you can't get that
Someday.
done in a minute, can you? Okay, so
Well-
maybe we'll have you come back and do that at some point.
It's a story. It's just this beautiful Lutheran pastor who called us, not once, but
Really?
3 times, and what that led to. And it's a great story.
We'll do a little feature on
Yeah.
Broomtree at some point.
And what
do
I'm
that.
going to do in retirement, this might sound trite, but I really, truly don't think I'll be bored, number one. And I just really want to dispose myself to the Holy Spirit, to be in that place of freedom, to respond and not have, well, I got work to do, or I've got this job, or, as men, we kind of are wired to provide.
Yep.
Well, in retirement, a lot of that's now taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And already this Wednesday, Jeannie and I are going to be helping teach confirmation classes for
nice.
Father Cowles at Our Lady
Nice.
Guadalupe, because he asked. And I just want to be open to those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
So no big grand plan that we're going to travel around the U.S. for a year or anything. You're going to leave it open and see what happens.
Yeah, and I'm so blessed because I've now traveled to 50 countries.
Right.
I don't have this big urge for travel.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect travel to be in there because we have friends
Sure.
all over the world.
Yeah.
But the other thing I've been asked by our board of directors is to continue to produce Christmas at the cathedral.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing, what the Lord has in store for
Yeah.
that.
I do too, because boy, I mean, that has been, along with the projects and the buildings, that has been one of the lasting legacies, I think, that you leave behind.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes I tell people, well, because of the Bishop's charity events, I get to fish and hunt and golf and do these concerts. It's a great job.
It is a great job. You've been very fortunate, haven't you?
I have been very
Yeah.
blessed. Yeah.
Mark, you'll be missed here, very much missed. And thank you for all your hard work, the blessing you've been to everyone here, and all the donors you've worked with.
Oh, thank you,
Over the
Renee.
years.
And
We really
I'd be
appreciate it.
remiss to not say I've worked with a great team here
Yes,
at the Catholic
you have.
Pastoral Center,
Yeah.
and our Catholic Foundation staff have been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
grateful. And all of our bishops, so
Yeah.
supportive.
Yeah. You'll be missed, but I'm sure we'll see you around.
I look
right?
forward to it.
Right.
Count on it.
All right. Thanks for coming
Yeah.
in, Mark.
God bless you.
Thanks. All right. If you haven't found us on social media yet, you can always find us at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter at SF Diocese anytime. That's it for us today. Hope you'll join us again next week for more Catholic Views.